Hello and welcome back to Talk Property to Me. My name is Brad East and today I have Cameron Smith from Waterford Financial Services and we're going to be talking about the CPI, so the inflation figures for the March quarter. Some exciting stuff, but it is something that we need to, unpack to see how that's going to relate back to the interest rates over the next 12 months or so. Before we get into that, this is also season 2 of Talk Property to Me. We've made it through a whole season. On that, a quick note that Casey will be, pulling back from the podcast for a while he spends some more time with his young family. But I'll be pushing through and interviewing and talking to some different people over the next few episodes, which is exciting as well. So to get into it, the inflation figures, the March quarter that did come out wasn't as great as they were hoping, correct? The December quarter, I believe, was about 0.6. This one come in at about 1.12, my exact figures. I actually put it into a spreadsheet this morning, which is, that's how dull I am. Literally.
Exciting times.
Yeah. Isn't that what everyone does? Puts inflation figures into a spreadsheet before a podcast. But when we break down, the reason I did that is because I want to break down the actual categories or the CPI groupings for that quarter, because it is really important to see exactly where the economy is at the moment. I think the media like bundling it up into one, inflation's at 1%. That means 4% per annum, and that's above the RBA's target of, what do I think they want, about 2%, 2.5%, 3%. So then that sells really good newspapers then because it's above where we need it to be. But we've also got to remember that it is a lot lower than it was 12 months ago.
Yeah, for sure.
What was it, 12 months ago? I think we're around 7%.
Yeah, it's come down a lot. So
it's come down a ridiculous amount. So if we look at that, it's still trending down. So, before we get into that, what's your prediction the RBA decision is this afternoon? If you're listening, it's probably back in time. But, the RBA decision for May is happening today, the day of recording. So what is your prediction on that, Cameron? What do you think? We're going up? We're holding?
I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern for now.
Yep.
Although I have talked to a few people and they do think later in the year there may be potential rise in rates.
Yep.
Which may come as a bit of a shock. So.
Yeah, well, I think the last time we talked about inflation figures on this podcast, most economists were tipping a reduction around September, October, November. I had a look at those numbers, obviously, before this podcast, and 95% of economists now are predicting no rate reduction this year.
Yeah, that's
all off the back of one. Look, from experience and from what we know, everything changes so quickly. As I said, 3 months ago, we were talking about these figures and we were celebrating. We were going, it was at 0.6, we're going to get a rate reduction in June, everyone started partying. But then this one comes out at almost double that, and all of a sudden, we're not getting it. So from experience, we know that when what's the next one? June quarter comes out, if it's substantially lower, all of a sudden they're going to change their minds again.
Yeah, well, it's hard with this stuff as well because you're looking backwards.
Correct.
And we're trying to
predict
forward going. So it makes it a real challenge.
It's hard to predict. No one knows. I guess that's the key. Is what do they say? 99% of stats are fake. Yeah. But they just don't know. They really don't know.
Economists are the new weatherman.
They are. Well, you can never accurately predict the future, can you?
No.
You can just go off what data's in front of you and make an educated decision. So if we break down those figures, again, some really exciting stuff here. But the groupings that that they break it down into. First one is food and alcohol. Now, that was at 0.9% for the quarter. Clothing, so personal items, clothing, that sort of thing, was negative 1.1%. Housing, so just, rental, all those sort of things, is 0.7. Household equipment, so, furniture and just typical stuff you'd buy from Harvey Norman, etc., was down 0.1%. Health is up 2.8%. So that's quite an interesting figure. I don't think that is a figure that you can really bring down by increasing home loan rates either.
No.
It's a necessity. You know, you can't punish homeowners and expect that doctors and surgeons are going to drop their prices. You know, if you need surgery, you need surgery.
Yeah.
Yes, it might, I guess, lower your selective, especially some of the cosmetic surgeries, if you don't have that money. But
Or they're going overseas for that sort of
correct.
stuff.
They go to Turkey to get the teeth and the hair and all the things that they're doing, or Thailand. But that figure is interesting. That is quite a high figure for that quarter, 2.8%. Is that because the demand increased during that period? Are people, you know, because rates have been on hold for a while, are people starting to get more of these elective surgeries? And that's what's pushed that inflation figures up, because it's all supply and demand, really, isn't it? The more people
potentially.
The more people that want it, the more they're going to be able to increase that price.
Yeah, and people just feel this is the new normal, and they just
starting
to
spend again.
What it's going to be.
Correct. So you got transport, which is at 0.5. Fuel, everything's all bundled into that. So not too bad. I thought that was going to be a lot higher, given the oil prices have absolutely gone through the roof. Again, not something we can handle or manage on a local basis or on a national basis. Sorry, that is, I guess the oil prices are very reliant on all the conflict in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, not a nice thing, but there's a lot of conflict in the world at the moment, and historically, armed forces will stockpile oil and resources during those periods. So that then pushes the prices quite high. Now, communication, so I guess phone plans, that's down 0.3.
Yeah.
Recreation and culture, that is down 0.1. I thought that honestly would have been less. If you look at the news over the last 3 months, how many music festivals have been cancelled?
Yeah, they're dropping by the wayside.
I think we had locally in Newcastle, we had Groove in the Moo, which historically that was a day after Anzac Day.
Yeah.
So I used to go to that one when I was in my 20s and absolutely be stuffed from the day before Anzac Day. Yeah, great ideas in your 20s. Let's drink all day on Anzac Day, have minimal sleep, and then go to a music festival and feel great.
Splendour in the Grass also
went down. I never thought that one would go.
Yeah.
From what I can see with those music festivals, a lot of it's the scale. I think the 20,000 plus music festivals, there's minimal margin in it compared to these smaller 5,000-10,000 family friendly music festivals. I'm going a bit off track here, but I think that is the bigger the scale, the harder it is to actually make profit on it.
And the additional costs that all these events, because I do triathlons externally, and just the policing, the closures of roads and all that sort of stuff, it just adds onto them. So it just...
And they pay for, I think per, let's say, I don't know the exact numbers, but per 1,000 attendees, you have to have X, Y, Z amount of police and security, and you pay for that as the organiser. Yeah. So, yeah, I think personally, the days of massive music festivals are over. You know, your big day outs, your sound waves, they were the first to go. I think we're going to see more niche style festivals. I went to Knotfest earlier in the year, which was it was at Pantera, Disturbed. You know, pretty typical for a finance guy to go to those kind of things. But
bringing back the old school.
Yeah, stuff I grew up with. But that was very niche. You know, you didn't try and get 15 different demographics into one festival. It was a lot of black. Yeah. It was a lot of black shirts. But yeah, that was an interesting one. I actually thought recreation/culture would have been a lot lower than that 0.1.
Does that take into account holidays and tourism?
Correct. So, I actually thought it would have been a lot lower. But I think you could even break down some of these groups and look at it on a bigger level. Maybe I need to make another spreadsheet for next quarter. Next quarter. Need to get a few pages. But, you know, it is interesting to see that is down. Now, the next one is huge, 5.9% increase in the education sector. Now, if you strip that out, again, I did this in a spreadsheet. If you strip that out of the groupings altogether, inflation levels only go up 0.59, so the same as last quarter. Yeah. So when I strip that out, I start looking at that and going, well, how is education something that you can manage by putting interest rates up? Like, think about it logically. That's You know, when you think about it, kids are going. Kids are going to school. The parents, we'll blame the boomers, but the boomer parents are probably giving them the money to go get these educations and do these art degrees and stuff, and that they're probably never going to use. But that is what's fueling it. And also, there was a natural decline during COVID of international students. So you had a whole period of 3 or 4 years where these big education facilities were going backwards.
But I wonder if it's more because during that time as well, the foreign students weren't there and universities were stripping back their staff as well.
Correct. And now they're back.
Bringing it back on. So that's spiked it. So that could be a bit of a play where that's come into it as well.
And we saw it with the food and alcohol in the previous quarters. They were massive. That was sitting 5-6%. The Coles and Woolies have been given a bit of a slap on the wrist and told to calm down a bit. And based on these figures they have, it's below the average. It's 0.9. Is that going to happen to the education sector next? Are they going to be told to calm down a little bit with their fees? I was reading something this morning, which I got in front of me, that the HECS and HELP debt is indexed into the CPI as well. Yeah. So they're at record highs as well. People are accumulating huge amounts of HECS debts, and they're just not getting paid down either.
Yeah, well, what are the average sort of uni degrees now? 60,000, 70,000 for a degree at some universities. So they're big numbers that you've got accumulating whilst you're studying and not being paid off.
Yep.
And then you finally get into the workforce and you've accrued another $20,000 worth of interest on that debt. So, yeah, people are going to hold them for a lot longer.
So if you look at what do we got here? So the average HECS debt at the moment is sitting at 22,636, and it is taking 9.5 years to pay off. That's huge.
It's a long time to have.
You think about that. So the inflation. So this is probably a little bit old, these figures, but the inflation was 7.8% for the education sector, while wage growth was only 3.3%. So then you take into, you still got to pay that debt off, even though your wages aren't going up. Yeah. The cost of tertiary education in that quarter has gone up 9.7%, which is huge as well. So I think, again, I don't know if putting up interest rates for homeowners is going to stop people getting an education. I really don't.
I don't think interest rates are really having a great impact at all on inflation. It targets a small, specific sector of the economy.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people that don't have loans, so it's not impacting them whatsoever.
You look at the over 50s or even some over 45s in some cases, they don't have home loan debt.
Yeah.
They've got huge amounts of savings. They've got investment properties. They've sold all these things. Increasing the home loan rates is not going to bring down some of those factors. We have seen, in my opinion, looking at these figures, we have seen enough of a decrease to not be worried that it's getting out of control. Are we really worried that education is going to become unaffordable in Australia? I don't think so.
Well, there's more and more numbers being put into independent private schools year on year. So people are willing to pay the money for it.
I don't think that's a bad number to be on a higher level in a country either. It just does. It does show that people are investing in their education.
Yeah.
And when you strip those numbers down, which is why I've done it, it doesn't look like it's a bad number. The last one in the grouping is insurance at 2%. Now, we know historically that insurers are always going to increase.
All the natural disasters that happen,
they've got to pay for
it. They're recouping their costs.
This is more your domain, the insurances side, but are you seeing major increases in, insurance premiums on personal insurances?
It's probably stabilised, but probably 2 years beforehand, a lot of companies were increasing their policies 5-15%
in a year. That's massive.
So they usually go through sort of runs and cycles where there'll be a big run of claims and then it'll force covers to increase.
Yeah. So overall, as I said, we've broken down those CPI groupings, and as I keep saying, I don't see any major issues with it. My tip for today is that it'll be on hold, and I think we'll be in a holding pattern for the rest of the year, to be honest. Yeah. I'm not listening to the media. I don't think we'll see a rise. I think it would be the negatives of the increase would far outstrip the positives.
Yeah.
You know, when you start looking at some of these retail sectors, you know, the Harvey Normans and you look at clothing, some of those clothing sectors, they're already in negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, the clothing and the food, alcohol, all those things are already seem to be under control, and they, in my opinion, are the groupings that are affected by increasing home loans. They're your family expenses. All the recreation, the culture, all of those numbers are already down. Increasing rates is not going to help. Yeah. And that's my spiel. I might be very wrong this afternoon, but...
No, I think we're on the money. I think it's going to be a hold. But this stuff changes so quickly.
100%.
You just don't know what the next 3 months is going to look like. And if there's a war, it's going to affect shipping channels and raise costs on all the goods getting imported in and things like that. So,
and I think if we did have an increase, it would be 0.25. I can't see them go more. And realistically, I feel like we've already been through such a hard time over the last 12 months. Another 0.25 is really not going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's more of a mental thing. You know, you think, we're going down this road again. But, yeah, I can't see a big benefit. But that's it for today. Just a quick one to run through some of those figures just so everyone sort of, I guess, really understands that inflation isn't just a number. It's an average of subgroupings. And then when you look into those subgroupings, you start to get a bit of an understanding of, I guess, what is actually increasing, what is decreasing. And obviously, this is something that the RBA looks at when they're making their decisions, which is later today, or last week if you're listening.
They may just have a slightly better adjusted spreadsheet.
I think they've got a larger spreadsheet. Mine's quite small, but it does the job. But that's it for today. Thanks for joining and listening. As always, jump in the Facebook group, get on the YouTube, Instagram, all those things. Love to hear your feedback on the content and what you would like to see in some of the future episodes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.